We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to a historical edition of the Sox Machine podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson. It's Sunday night, September 1st, 2024, as we record this new episode, and we have history to talk about. The Chicago White Sox accomplished two new lows on Sunday. First, they went winless in their 10-game homestand. That's a first. And they have lost 12 straight home games, so that really helps with morale. But with the sweep against the Mets, the White Sox now have 107 losses for the season, which is the most ever in franchise history. We'll discuss these new feats the White Sox have accomplished, ponder when the White Sox will win again, as they now go on the road to visit Baltimore and Boston, as the upcoming 3 games is the Eloy Jimenez Revenge Series. Jim this weekend visited Chattanooga to see the Birmingham Barons and top prospect Noah Schultz. The White Sox have officially called up Jairo Iriarte, and when will White Sox fans get a chance to watch Iriarte in action? In the end, we'll discuss what's going on around Major League Baseball, including the red-hot Chicago Cubs. Joining me are Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And gentlemen, history was made on Sunday with the White Sox getting swept by the Mets, losing 2-0. James, how does it feel to cover the day-to-day of a White Sox team that sets a new low bar that you may never see again?
I hate it a lot. I was talking to Andrew Benintendi Sunday morning, and I was kind of asking, I've been trying to build out this question of story about what's it like to be on the offense right now, and kind of asking if hitting is contagious, is not hitting contagious, is it is a negative environment where you are not scoring, dragging down the team approach in some way. And at some point, as I'm going through not hitting contagious spiel, Gavin Sheets is at his locker, and it isn't good fun. But he said, this is the same question you asked me yesterday. You got to get new material, man. I was I'm trying to ask different people about it. And Benintendi played along. He's I'll refer to Gavin's answer. But there's really not, to their credit, there's not really much to say. It's tough. I think I've heard some variation of it's tough. For the story, at least 12 times. For the season, 375 times. It's the constant verbiage. If I wrote a book about this season, it'd be it's tough. The 2024 White Sox and their road to hell. They all have to acknowledge what it's like, but also not go too deep into it because they're still kind of ensconced in the process of trying to make the best of it. So I wonder if we'll get the reflection on it either later the season, last series, or if it's going to be something that just, people are realistically talking about being a part of for years and years on end. And certainly in spring training, we're probably going to get a lot of like maybe more attitude towards it. Like I think Garrett Crochet was asked post game today, what can you learn? What can guys learn about themselves in a stretch and season like this? And he said, I don't think there's really anything you can learn. So the point of the suffering is not immediately accessible, or let alone the cost to everyone who's experiencing it. Least of all me.
Jim, the optics of setting this new low. What I love about the White Sox setting this franchise new low of most losses in a single season is the timing. There's still 24 games left in the season, which catches people's attention that, oh my gosh, the White Sox on September 1st have 107 losses. There's still 24 games left to go. And the White Sox, along with their friends, Related Midwest, built a mock baseball diamond in the South Loop location to draw attention once again in the White Sox desires to draw in a new fan base. I mean, build a new stadium in the South Loop. And just the optics of everything unfolding, again, just creates this incredible disconnect. Like, your product is so bad right now that, especially on Sunday, and I wasn't at the Saturday game, but Saturday, the Mets version of the 108, like we have the road trip, their road trip is on steroids. They took over an entire section at Guarantee Rate Field. It sounded like a home game for the Mets Saturday and Sunday.
7-Line Army. They had Chicago themed t-shirts for their trip.
Thank you. I forgot what their name was, but yes, it is 7-Line Army.
It's like if the 108 was like Gremlins and they ate chicken after midnight. That was what it was like.
Don't give them ideas. Yeah, the photo of the South Loop Sandlot, pardon my crassness, or if this is in poor taste, but it was like the ballpark equivalent of a dick pic in that nobody asked for it. Like, the person sending it was, the success rate is going to be near zero, probably impossible, but just, apparently they must work once in a while or else nobody would ever do it. But it's a case of just, why is this here? Why am I looking at this? You of all people, why? Like, what kind of, ego do you have that makes you think this is a good idea and received well? So that's my view of it, I guess.
I can't think of a better comparison with the field in the South Loop. But 107 plus losses, Jim. I wonder, are there going to be any further ramifications from this season in terms of personnel changes for the White Sox?
Yeah, I can imagine, like, on the margins, like, this should be, Chris Getz's firing. I think this should be a case of like Jerry Reinsdorf saying, look, no, patching doesn't work. This is the trying to ride a spare tire or like a donut for as long as you ride a Michelin. That's kind of what it feels like. You're just supposed to get it to the next shop and then replace that tire as soon as possible. And like, they're trying to go, they're going like 30 and a 75 right now, sparks flying behind them, everybody honking, getting out of their way. It's a bad idea all around. And it feels like very much, Chris Getz, there's a Paul Sullivan column just talking about, yes, we could have won more games, but we feel like that would have been wasted. And, going back to the Rick Hahn sustainability playbook, and just, I keep thinking anybody could do this. Like, Chris Getz is not, there's nothing special about Chris Getz right now. I could build a disqualifying baseball team. You could, anybody listening could, my son could, just by not signing anybody and just running like a 18-man roster out there based on who's legally obligated to show up. Like, that would be it. And they would still like be the worst team in history. So that's a case of just failure is so astounding that it's really hard to take anybody seriously. It's not a professional outlet. You can't assume the front office is going to be any better. So that's, I think, what's most jarring. And I was looking at some old clips from 1970 when the White Sox set the record previously with 106 losses. And the thing about that, well, two things about that. One is that all of the games, like they finished the season on the West Coast, and that's kind of where they wrapped up. So there weren't any kind of all the game stories were delayed. And so, and who knows what the Tribune's budget at that point, whether they sent a reporter out there, but there wasn't kind of robust coverage of those games because of just deadlines. So there is that, but also early in the month of September, they changed owners from Arthur to John Allen the year before. John Allen gave it a year to see what was going on. And then September rolls around and they're on the verge of like having to leave Chicago based on lack of support. Bill Melton set the home run record in front of 672 fans. That's how bad it was in Chicago, at least on the South Side in 1970. But at the start of September, John Allen decides, okay, we got to clean house. So they fire Ed Shorts and they fire Don Gutteridge, the manager. They bring in Stu Holcomb to be president. They bring in Roland Hemond to be, and this is funny because they're from outside the organization, but they are able to come in September. So there's no like exclusivity or contracts to wait out. Like they got permission to interview him. They bring in Chuck Tanner to manage the team in mid-September. So like Hemond and Tanner and then Johnny Sane was the pitching coach. They all start work in mid-September. So by the time that, part of the reason why, the losing games might have felt irrelevant and setting this record might have felt irrelevant is that there's enough change going on to know that even if they were going to set a record and even if the vibes were dreadful all the way around, at the end of August, there's enough change going on from outside the organization to where they were just running out the end of the season, running out the clock with the old guard. But they knew that there's going to be change next year. They knew enough had changed to know that there's going to be a different way of doing things. So everything was irrelevant. And with Chris Getz here, and supposedly this being the guy who was going to turn around the White Sox the quickest and seeing them fall so hard and without any draft picks to reward it, like they can't pick higher than 10th. So like this is not a canny strategy of just losing as hard as possible to ensure the number one overall pick. This is just irredeemably so. That there's no sense of renewal here. Maybe they fire Marcus Timms, maybe they just, maybe Marco Patti goes, or maybe they do something different to where they're signaling, more changes afoot. But it's still Chris Getz, and Chris Getz has like burned any kind of credibility he had. So just the fans are there's no reason to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I think that's why it's going to feel, it already feels incredibly stale. And that's remarkable for a guy who just celebrated, I guess would be the word, his anniversary on the job. It's as bad as 1 year on the job can be.
Yeah, James, are you hearing any further ramifications from this season in terms of personnel changes for the White Sox?
I mean, they've signaled a lot about, you mentioned Marco Patti. They've signaled a lot about international, and obviously they're not happy with like how things are operating there. They mostly kind of couch it in like, we're getting a new facility because that's something like tangible they can point to without like implying some sort of like, bloodletting is coming, which is generally uncouth until you do it. I think with the idea that you're going to hire a new coaching staff, like certainly there's a lot assistance wise that could change. You wouldn't necessarily expect like the new manager to like take on like the incumbent bench coaches. They usually they have their own, even if like, they like Drew Batera or Doug Sisson's been in an organization a long time, you'd probably lean more thinking they get reassigned or move somewhere. Or Batera could go back to catching coach, and assuming like a new manager would come on, and obviously a new manager could have their own preference for pitching coach or hitting coach, even though Katz is well likes and definitely works well with Bannister. And I definitely don't think they don't view like Thames as a problem or the problem. Like they're on their third hitting coach in 3 years. It's not like they were saying like, man, it's just this one guy's program. If we could only snap loose, it's like they don't view Thames that way. And I think mostly he's not working a lot of talent. Like if I talked to him just the other day, he's doing a lot of standard hitting coach stuff. He's trying to get Miguel Vargas's load to be smaller and quicker because he's late on fastballs. He's trying to get Brooks Baldwin to not be sped up because he seems like he's adjusting to major league velocity super hard. Like it's not like this one onerous program that's infecting all the White Sox. It's very much like the norm of what the White Sox offense has been for years now. So I think it's very easily he's not back because they could get a new hitting coach, they have a new manager, they have a new coaching staff, but they don't theoretically. The Grifol and kind of moving out of his top lieutenants was their kind of big move of this is what we needed to do with the coaching staff. So you could see a lot of change there just because turnover is natural. But I don't necessarily waiting to hear their status like on the last day of the season that there's going to be some final word. So I think because the standards of the season are such that like in a normal organization, this is just so bad. This is so unacceptable that just like everybody's gone. Like there's been rebuilding, there's been tanking within the league. It's been widespread for over a decade now. We still haven't seen these sorts of depths. This is still like beyond multiple standard deviations bad, where you'd expect like, the Phillies did this, there'd be, heads would rolling, but you don't necessarily feel a particular inclination to do more change other than what they reference with international. And, they've tinkered in amateur and pro scouting on the margins, but not in some big way they've announced over the last year, and something like that could continue to take place. But I'd be surprised if we saw anything scouting director wise either at this point.
Yeah, I'm assuming Chris Getz is not going to lose his job because Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't want to learn new names.
He barely had interest in doing a search last year.
Right.
To do it again and do more, like, exhausting.
Right. Having to work, not on the agenda. So that's why I was just like wondering, you already have set a new franchise record, but at this moment it's looking very likely you're going to set a new low for Major League Baseball history. And to come out of that and say everyone that built that team is coming back again to try again in 2025, I think that will catch some attention, especially in the winter meetings in Dallas, where people may ask us, what is going on with the White Sox? Why didn't they hire people again outside the organization and try to go in a different direction? Why are they still going down this path again? Yeah, fun times.
I got a reader email. They said, I have a question. Why has the 2024 White Sox season been so horrifically bad? Great question, I feel. Really, we're tasked for the next few months and trying our best to answer it. It's both incredibly complex and incredibly simple at the same time.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, are we watching like the early stages of like the Dave Stewart Diamondbacks?
Do they ever get this bad though?
I mean, not bad in terms, but I'm just, I don't know. But in terms of like just,
La Russa was involved.
You mentioned the winter meetings. Yeah, La Russa's involved, but also like, I'm just wondering, like, you picture the winter meetings or you said in the winter meetings, I'm just picturing like, are teams like going to just be circling around the White Sox trying to pick them clean and trying to look for like cracks and just, how they're operating and, just seeing if they can pry some pieces loose because like they just have a feeling like that nobody knows what they're doing there. Like that's, if that's what it is, and I'm not sure that it is, this is what it would look like in the early stages before it could confirm like, oh yeah, they're completely in over their heads. I mean, they very well might be, but like, that's what I'm wondering in terms of just like, organizational reputation around the league to where like all you have to do is mention Dave Stewart, you know exactly what's happening when it comes to just, not knowing the value of draft picks and, that sort of thing. Like, I wonder if the White Sox are going to be in a similar straits of just having to earn the ability to make good trades because nobody can take their asks seriously.
It's a good question. I think we're going to have to wait until the offseason when the Garrett Crochet trade, which seems inevitable, happens and see what gets in return for that deal. For the Dylan Cease trade, I think it's okay right now. I wouldn't say it's great, wonderful.
Took a hit today.
But he did get another 200 strikeout season. That's 4 straight 200 strikeout seasons for Dylan Cease. So Cease is providing what San Diego wanted out of that trade.
Yeah, has Thorpe been on the injured list more than Cease in his entire White Sox career?
Probably.
Yeah, Cease never won the injured list, right?
No, not in the majors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Thorpe's missed more starts than Cease.
You count on K where they thought he might have COVID.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Yeah, so speaking of the Cease trade, one part of that Dylan Cease trade is Jairo Iriarte, and he was just recently called up. I highly recommend going to SoxMachine.com, reading James's articles about Iriarte, as he got a chance to speak with many of the player development folks, including Brian Bannister, about one of the top White Sox pitching prospects. I guess the question is, James, when are we going to see him in action? What's the plan for the White Sox using Iriarte?
Single innings, separated by multiple days. He did make his start on the 29th, so I wasn't that surprised to not really see him this weekend. But I would say Monday or Tuesday, but probably in some low leverage environment. If the White Sox allow for that, they play a shocking amount of close games. Some sort of clean inning where probably facing the bottom of the order, where it seems like he can kind of get get a good head steam, but it really seems like out of the playbook that Bannister talked about in terms of wanting to get starters up and really just very much getting their feet wet, getting them acclimated to how their stuff plays in the majors, but not necessarily filling some big role on the team in any real way, which is fine. Like his previous career high was 90 innings. He's at 126. Like there's not really a ton you'd want to add to it. And you're not necessarily as much as talking to Bannister, I think it was allowed to maybe speak more freely than the average player development type who's like, has to project a strong image of like, he's a starter. We believe in him. Or Bannister's like, some will be started, some won't. Maybe he won't. I don't know. And can have this very 30,000 foot view of him. But I don't think you're really testing that out in some big way where you're pushing him to maybe be like a relief leverage figure for him where you're, oh man, we can't get rid of this guy. He's a great inning dude. Can we really go back the way Garrett Crochet was launched into a real vital role kind of right off the bat, where it's both one, he's clearly good, and also we have one other lefty and he's Aaron Bummer and all his innings are weird. So we need Garrett around. Just watch Aaron suffer through a weird inning where he should have gotten out of it, but a double play didn't get turned. Crazy how this keeps happening type of thing. So I think it's going to be very kind of removed from really kind of pushing him into a major league role. But the White Sox games don't really feel like major league games all the time. So it should fit fine.
On the position player side, the White Sox call up is Zach DeLoach, which we've seen him a couple of times this season. I don't know where he's going to be getting playing time if the White Sox are set to make Dominic Fletcher their everyday right fielder, which has been the case for the White Sox. Jim, are you surprised that it's DeLoach called up on the position player side?
A little bit, but only because, I guess Brian Ramos would have been a more interesting use of, the extra roster spot and his importance going forward. I don't know if DeLoach has a role on this team. He's improved as of late, but the power that he showed in Tacoma, which made him interesting last year, and he's like, oh, he homered a lot, but he struck out a lot. If he can cut down the strikeouts, maybe something. And so he's cut down the strikeouts, but he's also cut down the home runs while playing in Charlotte. So it's hard to see like any kind of top end outcome in any one area. Like he steals spaces, but he doesn't like look especially fast. And who knows if he gets on base enough to even, run that well. He's not like a standout outfielder. He's fine in an outfield, like kind of like Corey Julks is fine in an outfield spot, but not going to define himself by his defense. So like when you look at DeLoach, it's just like, I don't know what his role is, at the end of the year going into next season, aside from like extra outfielder, if Fletcher goes down, or if they just realize like, oh, Fletcher is limited in his own way by his lack of power. So we just need all left-handed options available. I think the thing with Ramos complicating him is just you have Miguel Vargas there, and there's been a little bit of life as of late. So it's hard to see the White Sox committing to Vargas as a third baseman when that's his best position. And I don't think you bring up Ramos to play him out of position. So I think if you look at Vargas as a solution and you want to move Ramos elsewhere because he's a little bit more athletic, might have more potential in the outfield, like that feels like a spring training thing or an off-season thing versus September for the worst team in history type project when Ramos's season has already been shaky. Like he's been playing well enough. I think that if he got called up in September, you wouldn't blink at it, but just he's redundant with Vargas. I prefer Ramos over Vargas, but if Vargas is here and needs the playing time to justify the trade, and both of them are kind of fraught with possibility of failure, it makes sense to pick one. And if the White Sox choose Vargas, so be it. So it's like those two, and then like with Edgar Caro having the back issue, and he was the only obvious answer. I think, it's more just eliminating the other possibilities, and that's how you get to DeLoach, who's healthy and playing well enough to maybe fulfill some kind of responsibility if you have that roster spot.
You probably just get pinch hit opportunities for the rest of the season. It has not been that many opportunities for DeLoach. He's played 9 games for the White Sox this season with just 25 plate appearances. That home run disparity that Jim was talking about, in 2023 in the Pacific Coast League for Tacoma, DeLoach hit 23 homers. In the International League with Charlotte, 6 home runs in 97 games. So not sure what happened to the power when joining the White Sox organization, but it seems to be a running theme as the Chicago White Sox are dead last in total home runs hit in all of Major League Baseball. While we wait to see what the playing time for DeLoach and Iriarte, Garrett Crochet did make a start against the Mets on Sunday. He threw really well. Very aggressive early, at one point striking out 7 consecutive batters against the New York Mets. Francisco Lindor tagged him for a home run. That was the only run allowed from Crochet. Of course, that one run was enough to win the game, so Crochet picks up another loss. He's now 6-10 on the season. Crochet has 188 strikeouts, so he's just 12 away from 200 on the season. But in the USA Today Sunday column from Bob Nightingale in the notes section, Nightingale wrote, the White Sox are expected to shut down ace Garrett Crochet in early September, making sure he's healthy and has no issues when they trade him this winter. If you recall the last podcast, if you got a chance to listen to that, we had a lengthy conversation about Garrett Crochet and if this weekend was going to be his last start. I think we all agreed at that time, no, the White Sox will continue to push him. It just won't be a lot of innings for the rest of the month. James, any change in that idea? Do you agree with Bob? Maybe this week is his last week pitching for the White Sox?
Remains to be seen. There's certainly the motivation there. There certainly is the intent to trade him, and thus, like, all these starts are theoretically like unnecessary risk. Or for Garrett, they serve the purpose of building out their stamina and increasing his arm figure, or putting him in line to make more starts next year. All things that aren't necessarily very important to the White Sox, and the on-field results are irretrievable. So the motivation is definitely there to shut him down. There's just not like the symptom they can really react to. He's hitting 100 on Sunday. Garrett wants to keep going. He said as much. He said he told the front office as much. Grady Sizemore, he definitely I think the most interim manager feel is that he will allude to the idea hey, that decision's above my head a lot with kind of larger player decision directions. And is kind of implying often that like he's not really a big voice and kind of determining like why they do certain larger things. He's not giving updates on Yamamoto's rehab or where he'll fit in if and when he returns. Like when they sent Ramos back down, he's like, I like him. I wish he was still here, type of thing. But said in a playful way where it's not really combative with the front office. Just kind of like, do what they tell me. He's not here. And I think with Ramos and Vargas, like, having the AAA season allows you to kind of keep playing him for a while. So, but with Crochet, to stay on board, like he said, I think we're going to hold off on that for a while. I think missing a start kind of gave us a little bit more leeway to, maybe get one more or than they were going to, but he did allow, like, it was a possibility for the final 2 starts of the year. Maybe it's a little start or 2 more zealous than he's letting on, but there's certainly been chatter, the idea that the White Sox are kind of looking to cut it off at some point, maybe 30 starts or maybe, a certain innings mark, since 120 was kind of what they thought was a pie in the sky possible result. I want to say he's over 130 now. So it can come at any time. It wouldn't surprise me, but there's certainly no real tangible reason for them to do it. I don't know what they'll do when they do. Do they put him on the IL for fatigue of some idea, or they just kill a roster spot? And also who fills the rotation spots when he goes down, because it's not going to be Drew Thorpe. Is it going to be Kai Bush, someone whose velocity is fading, is already, career high innings as is? It's not going to be Jairo Iriarte. Who's it going to be? It's kind of my question. They could bullpen game their way through it. It'll probably be very grueling, but certainly the way they handled things before. And, there's nothing really to salvage. But I think there's nothing really to salvage is always a good place to end any discussion of the 2024 White Sox. I got nothing.
I'm picturing Jake Eater taking those starts and just being like, how worse can it get? And then he shows up and walks 5 in the first inning and like, oh, that's never asked that question.
Outside of first innings, he's been okay. Just power through.
They need can they grant the White Sox ability to like end an inning like in a B game?
This isn't working out for us. Let's go to the next inning.
Can we have Andrew Vaughn take at bats every inning and hope that something happens?
That'd be great. I want to see Gritty Slice for try.
Andrew's in an 0 for 24 right now. So
Sure is. And Lenine Sosa, bless your heart. That's all I can say.
The thing I was wondering about going back to Crochet is like Tyler Glasnow's kind of been an instructive case, I think, for a couple reasons. And one, it popped up at the deadline with the Dodgers extending him after acquiring him and saying like, well, the Dodgers could do the same thing. And, looking at his history, he hits about 120 innings if he's lucky. And then it gets tough for him. And looking ahead at starts, he's like 13 starts, 11, 12, 11, 14, 2, 21, and 22. And like around the 20 start mark is when he started like wearing out. So I think there is some value in having Crochet make these starts if he looks good. And right now he's at 27, so he's blown past Glasnow's, what he's shown. But I think, if you have Glasnow as like an instructive, buying into upside and buying into somebody who can manage over 6 months, limiting their innings and realizing like, it's really tough to plan around somebody who's got durability issues. I do think it makes sense for Crochet to show some durability. But, on the other hand, like there is probably Dylan Cease, on the other hand, being somebody who was very durable, like made every single start, a lot of black ink in his start column. And that didn't really seem to move the needle too much when it came to getting some top end position player talent. So, perhaps that's overblown, but I wonder like if Crochet got to 30 starts, that'd be kind of a cool thing to say for just his ability to last through an entire 6-month season.
Well, for the White Sox, we'll preview their upcoming series against the Baltimore Orioles in a moment. But Jim got a chance to visit the Birmingham Barons as they were on the road in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Jim, what did you see? Anything positive that we could talk about from you visiting the Lookouts and the Barons?
Noah Schultz throwing a 4-seamer now. And James had referenced it with Brian Bannister talking, saying that swings and misses on the fastball were a little bit lacking. So, perhaps he needs to work at the top of the zone a little bit more effectively. And the two-seamer, like he previously used his two-seamer at the top of the zone because like just the angles and the defensiveness he created with the slider just created more opportunities for him than maybe the average pitcher. And as the hitters get more advanced, the strikeouts are coming down a little bit. Still not making him, still not punishing him when it comes to runs scored, but innings are getting a little bit tougher. So if you're looking for swings and misses, they thought, well, how about a four-seam fastball? And it was the Chattanooga Lookouts, who are the White Sox equivalent or close to it in the Southern League. Like they've been pretty lousy all year. Like the Barons have been beating them up pretty regularly. One of the worst offense by most measures in the Southern League, but still getting a second look at them. And the four-seam fastball got like 3 strikeouts on fastballs up. You could see it from behind home plate, like getting some good running action on it. Seems like he's taking to it. So you throw in his ability to throw sliders for strikes and not strikes, and maybe having something more for the top half of the zone. And like he seems like his development is coming along swimmingly. So there's that. Also, Peyton Pallette, like Pallette. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I need to get to the bottom of that. But
it's Pallette.
Is it Pallette? Okay, because it's
watching him in Arkansas. It's Pallette.
Okay. Because in the South, I think they do not abide by the French pronunciation, just palate. So I've heard it a lot as well. But he looks lively, like fastball, 96, 97, way more intensity, I think, on his stuff than watching him early in the year making starts for Winston-Salem. So it does seem like the jump to the bullpen has really revived his stuff, and he might have found a spot there just for like maximizing, both getting the most out of his stuff and getting the most out of his approach. And talking to John Eli, the pitching coach, he's very much a supporter of the idea of Pallette being a reliever, just because like he wants the ball a lot. He likes making a difference. He likes not having to worry about conserving his power stuff. And that seems like the easiest way to maintain safeguards for just, making sure that he doesn't have to try to run it up 96, 97 for 5-6 innings in order to maximize his contributions as a starter. So if you feel like he has upside for being a high-end reliever 3 times a week, then that kind of fits with what James is saying about Brian Bannister, like having comfort and not trying to go to all ends of the earth to make a guy a starter. If everything is saying like, wow, he loves this relief role. We use a second round pick on him. You ideally don't use a second round pick on a reliever, but coming off Tommy John surgery, that being a gamble already, like the fact that he's showcasing his best stuff in any kind of role that looks major league caliber, I think would be a win for all the possible outcomes, because they were wider when the White Sox drafted him.
Well, great stuff. Again, you can go to soxmachine.com in the minor keys, and there'll be more content as well from Jim's trip to Chattanooga to check out the White Sox top prospects. Noah Schultz probably still a couple years away, but I mean, for Peyton Pallette, fastest way to get to the White Sox right now is that they need help with the bullpen. Could he be ready some point next year, Jim?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Like he's laying waste to the Southern League right now, 2 innings at a time. And the thing that jumps out watching him is that he uses his changeup a lot more, because with this fastball, being mid to high 90s now, all of a sudden the changeup is more effective because there's just a bigger, the fastball is a bigger threat. Hitters have to load up for it more, so they're just off balance when it comes. And especially if it's not like in the scouting report yet, then he'll throw his fastball just as much as he would throw his curve, because it was a distant third pitch before. Like if he's using his second pitch because it's just that much more effective, then yeah, I think he would be somebody you could fast track in a relief role if he shows up in spring training looking just as strong as he is right now.
This series preview segment is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices in the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The Chicago White Sox are out on the road this week visiting Baltimore and Boston. If you are following the team to knock off some MLB ballparks you visited, check out Game Time for the last minute deals. You could also use Game Time for other sporting events like the Chicago Bears. Opening kickoff against the Tennessee Titans is this upcoming Sunday, September 8th, and tickets are already scarce to see Caleb Williams' NFL debut. Also use Game Time for shows and concerts. Game Time has tickets for Will Ferrell's show, which is really popular. It's going to be on October 26th. Billie Eilish is coming to the United Center November 14th, and Riot Fest tickets are now available. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code Sox Machine for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Sox Machine for $20 off. Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, great stuff. The Chicago White Sox now start a road trip after they lost 10 consecutive home games in their 10-game homestand. They've actually lost 12 straight home games. And boy, the White Sox are not much better on the road this season. First stop is to Baltimore. Great. The Orioles are 79-59 this season. They're a half game back the New York Yankees of the American League East. They are currently the American League 4th seed. If the postseason were to start today, they'd be facing the Minnesota Twins in that first round matchup. The Orioles' streak is one game. They have won one game. Last 10, 5-5. They're 39-30 at home. The pitching probables for this series, Monday's Labor Day, so it's an afternoon game, 2:05 p.m. Central Time. Chris Flexen against Corbin Burnes. And boy, 20 straight losses for Flexen appearances. And the White Sox offense has to score runs against Corbin Burnes. Flexen, I hope you got a no-hitter in you, man, because you may need it. And I still don't know if that will still be good enough. Tuesday night and Wednesday night. These games start at 5:35 p.m. Central Time. Nick Nastrini will get the ball again. He was very good against the Texas Rangers. He'll be opposing Cade Povich for the Orioles. Now, Povich has been struggling. In back-to-back starts, Povich has allowed 5 earned runs. The Orioles are 4-7 in his starts. So maybe, if you're looking for a win in this road trip, circle Tuesday night. Wednesday night, 5:35 p.m. Central Time again. Jonathan Cannon against Albert Suarez. Suarez has been very good. Another pitcher that the Orioles have been able to unearth, like last year, finding guys that no one's heard of. Albert Suarez has been that guy for them. The Orioles have won 3 straight starts by Suarez. But the big story for White Sox fans watching this series, it is the Eloy Jimenez Revenge Series. He finally hit his first home run for the Orioles on Saturday at Colorado. He's batting .296 with a .315 on-base percentage, but slugging just .408. He has 5 doubles and 1 home run with 7 RBIs and 71 at-bats with the Orioles. This is going to be weird, James, to watch Eloy against the White Sox. I guess at some point you're going to have these old friend types of matchups. I thought maybe we could see Tim Anderson against the White Sox, and I would have had really mixed feelings about that. That didn't happen, as Anderson was cut loose before that series began. So unless Eloy gets cut Monday morning...
Jake Berger more than made up for Tim's absence.
What's this going to be like for you watching this series, James, and seeing Eloy bat against the White Sox?
I mean, there's been a lot of stories about, like, obviously being happy to be in a, what I assume is a more upbeat environment, taking on and following, shadowing like Anthony Santander and his physical regimen, and how like Santander dealt with injuries like Eloy early in his career, and now he's kind of been more steady and being able to post, and maybe that'll key it, and how he's been coachable, but there hasn't been like this big transformation. Like, obviously he's hitting for average, and he's been like healthy relatively. So I think they acknowledged when he got there that he was pretty beat up, but he hasn't had any issues that have kept him out for a long time. So like it's good to see him going, and he's obviously one of the like most talented minor league hitters I've ever seen. It'd be nice to see like really that, really wonderful guy to watch, and like transcendent like combination of like power and like feel for hitting, like be functional in some way. But looking at the numbers and just looking at the way, the shape of his production, like the fundamental flaw has not really been addressed in some way. So yeah, I'm sure Eloy will be motivated. I'm sure he'll want to clean up on his old team. But if it's not really built into his swing to catch balls out front and drive them in the air, I don't really know. Are we going to be talking about like him getting his revenge by planking a couple of singles and feeling like it's something we could have seen here and gotten kind of false hope in? But until like what's really restored what he's able to do in his approach and not having to cheat for power because it was so easily accessible, and drive the ball to right center in the air often. I don't know what really get hyped up for other than just like, I don't know, painful memories are seem like a dime a dozen this season. So I don't know if this one will really register as opposed to in the weekend where, seeing Romy Gonzalez flourish for the Red Sox. That's true pain and heartbreak that I think everyone will connect to immediately.
How about you, Jim? What's it going to be like for you to watch Eloy bat against the White Sox?
I'm kind of indifferent to it just because it was a dead end. Like there was no real at the point the White Sox traded Jimenez and like probably months too late. It was just a matter of like you couldn't trust any upswing because it was either just kind of either BABIPing his way into above average production because like the home runs weren't there, or you just had to worry about as soon as he said like I'm turning a corner, then he would pull up lame again, running down the first base line or something like that. So it had come, and to me, like Jimenez struck me as somebody who I thought like Ryan McGuffey's explosion was like kind of shocking because it didn't seem like Jimenez was some kind of malign presence on a team. He struck me more as like not necessarily a front runner, but somebody who goes along, I think, with the general vibe and intensity of the clubhouse and things are going well. Like he'll play up or his presence will be fine. But if it's a case of like you're looking for somebody to help kick the team into an extra gear, like that's just not who he is, and he can kind of get dragged down by an environment that's not producing baseball excellence. So I think he's that's not necessarily what you want from a player you invest such a lengthy early contract extension on. That's probably something you want to be a little bit sure of before you do hand money out. But to me, it struck me as there were moments when the White Sox rebuild was clicking and he was a big part of it, and seeing him not being able to help steer the White Sox out of the slide just struck me as, just he might be more of a kind of goes with the flow, and sometimes the flow takes you into some dark places and he's not going to paddle against it. So I'm rooting, not necessarily rooting for him. I'm not rooting against him, just inflection point to where, just one wrong step or one pitch that hit him in the hand, like threw his entire career off the rails. Like it was a long slide. And at some point I detached myself from the ability for him to turn around. And so he's kind of a player in another team now. I think I'm kind of curious about the Orioles, like looking at their splits, like they're a below average offense in August. Gunnar Henderson, you don't hear MVP talk about him anymore because he had a pedestrian month. Rutschman kind of struggled. So they are primed to take advantage of the White Sox, just being like, they do need a get right series, and the White Sox certainly can help them with that.
Yeah, and Corbin Burns needs a get right game. It's going to be tough for the White Sox to score against Burns, but Burns in his last 3 starts, the Orioles have lost those games. And he has given up at least 6 runs. In his last outing against the Dodgers, he gave up 6 runs. Only 1 was earned. Even though he allowed 2 home runs, it's a really weird stat line for Burns. But he had a rough month of August. In 5 starts, Corbin Burns had a month ERA of 7.36. And he seems to be fading as the season progresses here. So maybe the White Sox could surprise, and they could put together a few runs for old Chris Flexen and to try to snap this 20 straight losing streak for Flexen in his appearances, and he can finally talk about a victory. Flexen's been pitching okay. He just doesn't get any run support whatsoever. So as Jim mentioned, the Orioles offense will be very happy to see the White Sox. I'm sure the Orioles pitchers will be very happy to see the White Sox hitters. We'll be recapping this game in our next podcast and then preview as the White Sox head to Boston to face the Red Sox this upcoming series. A couple of hot hitters to watch. Ramon Uriarte has an OPS over 1,000 in his last 13 games with 3 homers. And as James mentioned, Anthony Santander, 3 homers in his last 13 games. He's got 39 homers for the season. He's looking for homer number 40 this series against the White Sox. Hey, Sox Machine podcast listeners, would you like an extra $500? Go to BlueWirePods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and in turn help this show. That's BlueWirePods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. Again, the website is BlueWirePods.com/survey. We'll wrap up this podcast with a look around Major League Baseball, and I'll start because this will be a pretty popular topic. I know there's going to be a lot of conversation because week 1 of the NFL season starts this weekend. But the Chicago Cubs had a big road trip, and they are hot again. They have won 6 straight games, and seems like manager Craig Counsell's earning his paycheck. They're still 3.5 games back of the wild card. They're 9-1 in their last 10. And what's amazing is that the Cubs have scored 99 runs in their last 10 games. So I had to look it up. How long has it been for the White Sox to score 99 runs? And since July 24th to present day is the White Sox span of games in which they have scored 99 runs. It's been about 35 games for the White Sox to score 99 runs. So pretty impressive by the Chicago Cubs. I mean, they're averaging almost 10 runs a game their last 10 games. But the White Sox, it's been a long time. To say that the White Sox have not scored 100 runs since a week before the trade deadline just adds to the despair following this team every single day. But with the Cubs, in our last podcast episode, I was wondering if the Mets were going to be the one from the outside looking in and to sneak into the playoffs. James, should we not count out the Cubs quite yet?
I'm not worried about them, I guess. Or at least not like super hyped about it. There's a lot they're counting on to kind of string their rotation together with Hendricks seemingly near in the end. They're relying on Jordan Wicks coming off the 6-day IL for a start at the start of this week. I don't think their offense can stay this hot forever, and I don't think they're as bad as they were at the start of the season, but this will dissipate a little bit, and I don't know if there's really there's a lot of teams to overtake, and because they didn't like add in some traditional way at the deadline, I don't know if they really have the horses to continue overtaking. It's definitely interesting that they got this close, and I wonder how it'll affect like how they approach next season, but I don't think they're next the sleeping giant that's been awakened some big way. So I guess I'm not thinking they're really going to draw TV cameras from the Bears too regularly. No. And been doing some scrubs with Grady with no cameras of recent, and I don't know if that's the way we're gonna finish out September. But there's only so many TV guys to spare.
So for you guys, Jim, I'll start with you. What is catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
Well, the Royals did claim Tommy Pham, also Robbie Grossman, so they're trying to repair the plane midair. They kind of lost some steam after evening up with the Guardians, so curious how that goes. Like, I'm always fascinated by like guys like Grossman and Pham who just kind of it's not failing upwards, but it is just kind of being adequate and just having a track record that makes teams want them. So they use the White Sox to kind of get their foot in the door and then just, find better situations like Pham to the Cardinals and then the Royals and Grossman to the Rangers and then to the Royals. And like Duke Ellis is suddenly on a September roster for the Yankees, like popping up.
How amazing would it be if if the Yankees win the World Series and Duke Ellis gets a World Series ring?
Yeah, I mean, like Terrence Gore was kind of his, like, I guess, major league
hero
comp, like in terms of what he could possibly be. Somebody, he can knock the bat out of his hands if he tries swinging it every time. But in September is like a speed guy and not really speed in defense. Like I think he's okay defensively, but he's not somebody like you hope that he doesn't have to play many innings in the field, like maybe 1 or 2 in a game to finish it out after he appears as a runner. But this was his destiny if he's going to make it as a major leaguer. So it's kind of a good test run for whether he's rosterable for a team that actually has like designs on winning it all versus trying to win one game a week, which is eluding the White Sox right now. So that's jumping out to me there. Also, Jordan Walker had a 5-hit game for the Cardinals because like they got rid of Tommy Pham or just said like, oh, we don't need the proven major leaguer. Let's pivot to the future. Then Jordan Walker shows up and delivers 5 hits in a game. And I was really hoping the White Sox would be able to trade for him. I think the White Sox were hoping that too. Like when the Cardinals, they're talking about Eric Fetty, and it felt like Walker had gotten a couple chances and hadn't quite clicked. And the Cardinals have been really weird with young talent, not being able to get it to click the way they used to. So I saw like an opening there that maybe he became available the way like Miguel Vargas became available to the White Sox instead. And unfortunately it didn't happen. And I'm curious to see what he does with the rest of the season, because I did think that there was a hitter there who just needed probably a month or 2 of low pressure plate appearances to just figure it out. If the gap between the majors and AAA is as large as people say it is, then it stands to reason that somebody like Walker, whose problem isn't bat speed or like, where he catches the ball, etc. It's just more a matter of just recognizing, spin at the major league level and quality strikes, being able to discern hittable strikes versus pitcher pitches, that comes in time. And so I imagine with the Cardinals pseudo being out of it, although they're like every other National League team, they're a hot streak away from being right back in it. This might be his opportunity to kind of cement himself in a lineup, despite like the Cardinals not being all that impressed with him so far.
Good stuff. Jim, how about you, James? What's catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
I was definitely curious on St. Louis side because seeing them kind of purge their veteran elements and kind of give up on really taking the traditional route towards still trying to win this year. Not that that's impossible, but they're certainly no longer operating that way and trying to get Walker at bats. It makes you wonder if they're a team that's going to move towards rebuilding or move towards like a retooling year. And does that involve like a managerial change? And does that give another much more maybe appealing competitor on the market for someone like Skip Schumacher? So the way they finish the year and the way they kind of operate towards the end of the year, I think could be something that impacts the White Sox in a way that maybe is a little bit sneaky or hard to see right now. What was the other team that Jim brought up?
Yankees, Duke Ellis.
Yankees. My dark view is that given how pissed the Yankee fans were about Duke Ellis instead of Jason Dominguez as their call up, reminds me of very much like the same kind of negative vibes that came with like, in a normal organization, Ellis is kind of a fun promotion, but it was like for the White Sox, it's like, why do we have like this hood ornament for our jalopy type of attitude? And so seemingly kind of the logical transfer is that like Ellis makes and this is because the season has turned me dark and I'm unable to see the joy in life or the bloom and flowers or the sunbeams on my face, is that Ellis makes some sort of backbreaking base running error in either like a decisive late September game or in the playoffs that make him like infamous in New York, far outstripping his tenure and far outstripping his
like the Dibber.
Yeah, like some sort of reverse Bucky Dent situation. So that's probably everything very, very Murphy's Law view of the league and the ex-White Sox that populated it.
Entirely possible.
I mean, we saw it this year. Wrigley. How many teams has Duke Ellis played for this season?
Played for, I don't know, but like organizations, I feel like this is the fourth.
Because the Mets, Yankees, who was the fourth?
Mariners.
Okay. Oh, that's right. He was with the Mariners. Man, well, he's gonna have to shave.
He can rock with that mustache look that he was going with when he was with the White Sox.
So he's only gotten at bats with the White Sox this season. 4 stolen bases though. 4 at bats. Did not get a hit, but he's got 4 stolen bases. What a line. What a line. He'll wear number 70 for the New York Yankees. And we'll see if Duke Ellis makes an impact for them pinch running coming off the bench. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening and celebrating the White Sox setting a new franchise worst, 107 losses in a season. It will continue to grow as we still have 24 games left. We'll see if the White Sox could win 9 more this season. Will they win ever again? We'll see, but we'll continue to cover it. And thank you for your dedication to continue. Visit SoxMachine.com and listen to the podcast as we release it. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You can also listen and watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. And as always, thank you to the continued support for those that have signed up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. Thank you. If you want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, full access to all of our coverage of the White Sox prospects and the minor leaguers that James and Jim have been working very hard on and getting excellent stories on these guys so you can be educated and know what's up before they get called up or promoted from the different types of levels. Hagen Smith's starting to make some starts now. Sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. Monthly plans start at $5. You can get ad-free versions of both the podcast and website. We also have additional tiers of support as well with additional perks. Again, sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.